Welcome to Eastown Online. My name is Emerald, and I'm really glad that you have chosen to watch us today. Our life work here at Eastown is for anyone to experience Jesus, belong in community, and love our neighbor. What does that mean for us? It means that we want you to know that Jesus wants to get to know you, who you are and where you're at in life right now. He wants to know you, and he wants you to know him. It means that we are encouraging our people to live life together in community to see all the ways that Jesus can show himself. And it means that we are committed to loving local. Loving local means that we want to show up with love and mercy and grace and justice wherever we go. If it is your first, second, or third time watching and you've never checked in with us, you can do that by texting Easttown to 94000. I want to encourage you to subscribe and share, and don't forget to comment. I want to hear what it is that you're learning as you are watching. I know for some of you, this right here is a first step into community. And so I want to thank you for taking that leap to join us. But I also want you to know it is so much better in the room. So today, I pray that in the meantime, you take in this moment, and I pray that this message pushes you to love God, love yourself, and love others better. Enjoy.
If I've never met you, my name is Evan. I'm on the leadership team here at Eastown. We've actually been around Eastown since day one, and it's so good that they got a sabbatical, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But welcome to August. If you like August, it is kind of like a holy month because my birthday is this month, and it also is a little bit tough because I feel like the plane of summer is like landing, right? School's starting for some people this next week, which is a travesty. And maybe you're kind of feeling that, but this summer was really, really great at Eastown. I think you always kind of wonder like, okay, Clint and Michael are going on their sabbatical. Will this thing keep going? And it was amazing. And so I want to shout out, like Clint did, the speakers who were here this summer. If you got a chance to listen to people talk about the Psalms, I just thought that was so amazing. Like how perfect they were for kind of the moment in our lives, right? It feels like there's a psalm for just like really the experience of being human. Are you down? Are you frustrated? Are you at these highs, these lows? There's a psalm that can apply to really to almost any point of your life. And so, a big thank you to the speakers and a big, big thank you to everybody behind the scenes. I mean, if you've never volunteered or been a part of church, it actually takes a lot more than you might think. And so if you're in the back, if you're a staff person, if you're a volunteer, can we just kind of like clap, cheer, and make a lot of noise? You can do that at church. Yeah. I want you to know that those of you who volunteer and get here early and stay here late and do all of those things, like you literally make Eastown what Eastown is. When we were talking about Eastown from the very, very beginning, we always said like we didn't want it to just be this Sunday morning experience within these four walls, but we wanted to be this like relational community. And I feel like we've hit that mark and maybe even gone beyond it with the amount of relationship and community building that goes on here. And it's so close to our hearts. And so like Clint and Michael talked about, and the screen behind me says, we're starting a new series called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's going to be great. We're designed to unlock the transformative power of welcoming others, right? And I want you to think about a time, just like take a moment and think about a time in your life where somebody has welcomed you in. And how that made you feel, right? Somebody has either opened their doors to you, has invited you out to lunch or breakfast or coffee or whatever, and what that made you feel, right? It makes you feel seen. It makes you feel known. It makes you feel loved. It makes you feel cared for. It makes you feel special. And we want to create that no matter what the background of somebody is, no matter where they're coming from, what their experience might be, if they think differently than us. And I get the privilege to kind of kick off this series as we go through. And I'm excited about it because I really, really believe that it's close to the heart of Jesus. If you look at the life of Jesus and the way he lived and operated and treated people, it was all about being hospitable, about loving those around him, no matter what. And we'll get into this later, but some of the people that he hung out with, he really wasn't supposed to be hanging out with. But he did it anyway because he was unreasonably hospitable. And so this is actually all based on a book, and maybe some of you have read it. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is conveniently to remember. And it's a story about a guy who's in the kind of the restaurant industry, and he talks about kind of going, and the words I kept thinking of when I read the book was above and beyond. And he wanted to create an experience in his restaurant and even in his life where people felt seen and known and loved when he interacted with them. And so you heard it actually last week if you were here, where Philip talked about the hot dog situation, where someone's sitting at a restaurant, at his bougie, nice restaurant, and he overhears them say, "I wish I could have had a New York street hot dog while I was here, but we leave tomorrow morning and there's going to be no time." And they're at this really bougie restaurant. So he goes out to a street vendor on the sidewalk, grabs a hot dog from the guy, and then brings it in and plates it really beautifully. If you've ever been to a nice restaurant, plates it and serves it to the guy. And the guy goes, "Whoa, that's crazy." Like to go above and beyond like that. I actually have a story in my own life. This happened to me just last week. My family and I were in Guatemala, and we were visiting there, and we did this tour thing. This was on Wednesday. And you have to have a tour guide, because I don't know what I'm talking about. And so we're doing this tour guide for these kind of ancient Mayan ruins. It's super cool. And then on the way back, they stop and they have lunch for you. And our tour guide was named Elmer. And I was like, "Elmer, that's such a cool name." He's like the glue. And I was like, "All right." And then I was like, "Hey, why did your parents name you Elmer?" And he literally goes, "I'm named after Elmer Fudd from the cartoons." And I was like, "I love that for you." So Elmer was awesome. It's me, it's my in-laws, it's my brother-in-law and his family, and there's young kids, it's my kids. And he's so patient, and he's so awesome. The entire time he's touring us around, it's 95 degrees, it's hot. I would have been cranky. I would have been like, "Kids, stop talking." But he was so sweet. And then we get to the restaurant, and we'd all ordered ahead so the food would be ready. And so we're ordering fajitas, but legit fajitas. They were delicious. And me and my brother-in-law and my father-in-law, we look at each other, and they're like, "What do you want to drink?" And come on, let's be honest with ourselves. What is good to drink with fajitas? Whoever said beer is correct, a cerveza, if you will. Yeah. And so we're like, "Okay, well, I'll have beer." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. This restaurant does not serve it." And we were like, "Oh, okay, no worries." And he goes, "But I'll go get it for you." And I'm like, "Where are you going to go?" And he goes, "I'll go down the street. It's a 5-minute drive. And I'll go get it. What kind do you want?" And we were like, I don't know. What's good?" And he goes, "I'll be back." And he goes and he gets 3 different types and brings it back to us and brings it to our table and goes, "Here, you can try all the ones that are kind of local to this place." And I was like, man, that's kind of cool if you think about it. This ability that he could have had this moment to just go, "Yeah, sorry, they don't serve it. Enjoy your meal, shut up, and let's get going." But he actually made us feel really valued. And I walked away from that, and I had this experience where I went, man, we talked about it for 2 or 3 days after that, about how he made us feel, about how special we felt, about him going above and beyond to just see us. And that's a little bit about what we want to talk about in Unreasonable Hospitality, is that opportunity that we have to see somebody, for Elmer to say, "I'm going to go above and beyond to treat you like you matter." Because you do. We all do. And if you look at the life of Jesus, Jesus cares so deeply about people. He never, you watch actually his life, and you read about his life in the Gospels in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you watch how he treats people with such intentionality. He sees people. He actually takes it pretty slow comparatively. He's never on a program like, "Oh, I've got to go and I've got to get here before that." But I'll be honest with you about me, and maybe this resonates with you. It's actually really hard for me to do this in the day-to-day. It's really easy for me to miss seeing someone. It's really easy for me to get kind of on the program of going. I'm really busy. I got to wake up. I got to go to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do my kids and my wife and all these kind of things that I've got to go and do. And so it's actually easier for me if somebody else will maybe make the first step, or it's actually just easier if I don't do it. Because to be honest with you, if I invite someone into my life or into my home, if I say, "Okay, I'm going to be unreasonably hospitable to you, I'm going to go above and beyond," I'm going to be very honest with you, is awkward. It can be. And that's a little bit painful if we're really honest with ourselves. Like, we don't want the awkward, right? We'd rather kind of keep our head down and kind of chase this kind of like, let's keep going up and to the right, right? Like constantly moving, like gaining, grinding, all of those kind of things. And we miss seeing people. And it ends up that our calendars and our schedules, if you take a look at them, kind of all revolve around ourselves rather than somebody else in our lives or the people that God is putting in our path. And my encouragement to you today is to step outside of your comfort zone, is to take a beat, to take a moment, to pause, if you will, and step outside of that comfort zone and really see the people that God has put into your life. They might be in this room. They might be in your office at work. They might be in the pickup drop-off line at school. There's an opportunity to show love to those people, to open your doors, not just of your home, but of your heart to these people when we actually step outside of our comfort zone. So I'm going to look at 3 examples in the Bible of how Jesus did it because I think these are good, right? And if you're a follower of Jesus in the room, what we want to do is we want to model our lives after Jesus, what he did, how he lived, how he treated people. If you were in the room and you're kind of like, I'm not so sure about this Jesus thing, you're in a good place. Eastown is up for those questions, up for those doubts, up for those skepticisms. And we actually have, you'll hear more about it later, we have Alpha, which is totally designed for you to ask those questions and kind of explore that journey of what it might look like to follow Jesus. So let's jump in. There are 3 examples I want to give you, and they're on the screen right here, and that's seen, known, and loved. Seen, known, and loved. And so I'm going to show you how Jesus did this. And the first one is seen. If you look in Luke 19, I don't have it on the screen, you're just going to be okay. If you look in Luke 19, there's this story, and a lot of us have heard it if you've grown up around church. It's about a guy named Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus, I don't know why the Bible did it to him like this, but he's short. Like, it literally says he could not see above other people. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, guy. That's like your legacy in biblical history, is to be short. So Jesus is coming through town, and people had heard about him. He's doing miracles. He's teaching, and people want to go and see him, and the crowds are in kind of tight. And Zacchaeus is like, I'm short king, and I'm going to climb this tree so I can see Jesus. So he climbs up this tree to kind of see Jesus going by. And in Luke 19, it talks about Jesus looking up and literally uses the words, and seeing Zacchaeus in the tree. And he says to him, come on down here. I'm going to have dinner at your house. Talk about a self-invite. We're going to have dinner together. And I'm going to get to know you, and I'm going to hear your story. And you go, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, he saw him, and that's amazing and all that kind of things. And it is. And then it's even more amazing when you understand the context of who Zacchaeus was. In the Bible, the guy is a tax collector. And you're like, I hate paying taxes. Yeah, everybody does. But in the Bible, in that time, if you were a tax collector, it means you had sold out to the Romans who were kind of controlling the Jewish people at the time. And you had sold out to your people, and you were working for the occupying enemy. Right? If some other country came in and took us over, and you were like, I'm going to work for those guys, people would not love you. You would be a social outcast, and tax collectors were. And Jesus looks up and sees this person, this social outcast, this hated person, and says, come down, I want to spend time with you. He sees him for who he is. So I have a question. How do we lift our eyes and shift our perspective in order to see those that we don't naturally see? For me, it might be, I do this all the time. It's a little bit painful, but you walk or you're driving home or something like that, and you're getting off an exit, and maybe there's a houseless person on the side of the road. And right, you focus really hard forward because if you make eye contact, it's going to feel like that moment where you have to do something. You don't want to do that because it's painful. Maybe you take a moment and you see, and you look at that person, and you ask yourself, what is the story that got them where they are today? Who are they? Can I see their humanity? Can I actually see them? Or I'm going to avoid seeing the people who are all around me. And so in your own lives, my encouragement to you is to keep your eyes up, to see other people all around you who are in need to be loved, to be hospitable to. All right, there's another story in the Bible, second one, and that's known. And this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's in John 4 in the Bible. And Jesus and his disciples, these guys who are following him, are traveling. And in Bible times, you would skip this area when you were traveling called Samaria. The Jewish people hated the Samaritan people. Like, there was like Zero love between the two cultures. And so what people would often do is literally go around this territory so they wouldn't have to go through it, like adding tons and tons of time on their journey so they wouldn't have to interact with Samaritan people. And Jesus is like, we're going straight through. And they're going and they stop at this well, and the disciples go and get food, and there's a woman at the well sitting there, and Jesus stops and talks to her. And you might go, okay, that's really nice of him. He's a social guy. No. You, like, culturally, there's so many things wrong with him sitting down to talk to her, to get to know her, to ask her questions, and to kind of cut through all of the things about her that he knows and go right to her soul. He's not supposed to be talking, as a guy, he's not supposed to be talking to a woman. As a Jewish person, he's not supposed to be talking to a Samaritan woman. But he does that anyway. And the question is, I ask you, is how are we taking the time to stop and get to know other people? Because you read on in that story, and he's talking to her, and he's asking her questions, and he's speaking truths into her lives and into her life. And she goes back to her town, and she says, wait till you hear about this guy I met. And then later on, it talks about the rest of her town following Jesus because of her. But it took that moment for Jesus to stop, not just to see her, but to begin to get to know her. And that takes us stopping and spending time with people to truly get to know them. I understand we're not Jesus, so we can't just like cut through all the stuff and just know everybody's like at a soul level. But you can do that. But it takes a lot of questions. And that can be a little bit difficult in our lives, right? To stop and actually not make any of these kind of judgment calls, to actually say, hey, I'm going to ask you questions so I can actually get to know you at this deeper soul level. So I can actually know you as a person. Know you in the way that Jesus knows you, see you in the way that Jesus sees you, and then lastly, love you the way that Jesus loves you. There's a story in John 8 where Jesus is at the temple, which is kind of like the church at the time, and he's with his followers, and there's this group of people called the Pharisees. If you've been around church, you know they're kind of like the bad guys in the Bible sometimes, but they're trying to like catch Jesus in a trap so they can pretty much like make everyone disbelieve him. And so they bring this woman who had been caught having an affair. Why the guy is not in the story, it's a little bit frustrating for me. I'm like, that guy got away scot-free. But they drag this woman into the temple, and they throw her down in front of Jesus, and they say, hey, this woman's been caught having an affair. And in the Bible, like the Old Testament, it talks about we should stone her, so let's do it. What should we do, Jesus? And they're trying to trap him. Because should he disobey that? Like, what should he do? And Jesus doesn't say anything. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. And he starts like writing in the dirt, and you don't know what he's writing, which I think is also mysterious. And they're pushing him, and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? Should we stone her? And Jesus says, let him who is without sin cast the first stone, right? And then slowly people begin to kind of drop their stones and walk away until there's nobody left besides this lady at his feet. And he says, where are your accusers? And she's like, they're gone. And he goes, then I'm not going to accuse you either. Go and sin no more. And I think there's such an, like, if that's not love, I don't know what is. To see beyond the mistake that she had made, to see beyond the reputation that she had earned, and to see her for who she was as a daughter of God, as a child of his, and to love her in spite of the mistakes that she made. And I was asking myself this question about how many times do I judge someone based on their actions, their outward appearance, the things that they do, before I get to know who they are. And I was kind of convicted by that because I do that often. I often define people by their mistakes or their actions or their past. And I love how Jesus says, no, I love you. It's not about what you've done. It's not about what you're going to do. It's about you. Jesus sees and knows and loves those that he interacts with. And for us, it's a good maybe kind of like, okay, so what does this look like in my life? How do I see? How do I know? How do I love people around me? And the encouragement to you today with the Unreasonable Hospitality message is this, are you loving people who it's maybe not as easy to love? Are you inviting people into your circle, into your life, who maybe it's not natural to be around? Maybe it's not just a simple thing. These are not necessarily like your best of friends, but can you treat the stranger, the outcast, the person who thinks different than you, the Republican if you're a Democrat, the Democrat if you're a Republican, can you bring them into your life and see and know and love them? Our kind of key verse is in 3 John, and that's all the way at the end of the Bible, and I've got it up on the screen here for you. And John is writing this, and he's writing to this group of people, specifically this guy named Gaius. And he's writing to him, and I want to read this to you, and I'll give you a little bit of context for it. Dear friend, I hope all is well with you, and that you are as healthy in body as you are strong in spirit. Some of the traveling teachers recently returned and made me very happy by telling me about your faithfulness and that you are living according to the truth. I could have no greater joy than to hear that my children are following the truth. Dear friend, you are being faithful to God when you care for the traveling teachers who pass through, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church here of your loving friendship. Please continue providing for such teachers in a manner that pleases God, for they are traveling for the Lord, and they accept nothing from people who are not believers. So we ourselves should support them so that we can be their partners as they teach the truth. So there's this church in the New Testament, and he's writing to, and he's thanking them because there's these teachers who have been traveling around. Like the equivalent would be like if Clint like literally traveled all around California speaking at different churches, he would be known as a traveling teacher, right? This makes sense. And the question to ask yourself is, okay, so who puts him up? Like who takes care of him as he's traveling around doing this work? And for this church, John is writing to them and saying, writing to this guy Gaius and saying, you are the person who took care of him, despite you not knowing him, despite you not having a deep relationship with him, despite it probably being a little awkward and uncomfortable to say, come on over after church and hang out in my house and you can spend the night and I'll put you up and I'll take care of you. Because even though I don't know you, you are a child of God. I see your humanity. I see you the way that Jesus sees you. And I want to invite you into my home. And so my encouragement to you this morning is to do that, is to invite people into your life who maybe you don't know as well. Again, they might be right here at Eastown, who maybe you haven't had the opportunity yet to be in a relationship with. Go have lunch after church. Invite somebody over for dinner. Go, if you like to run, go for a run with somebody. Meet up at the gym. There's lots of different ways that you can be hospitable to somebody to go above and beyond. But my encouragement to you is if it feels easy, to find someone who it doesn't feel as easy with, to really stretch yourself. Because don't do it for this outcome. But what's really cool is in that story is that the guy, his name is Gaius in the story, who's opening up his home to these traveling teachers, is not just how he makes other people around him feel, not just how he makes these traveling teachers feel a sense of belonging, right? It's actually what happens to him at a soul level. We live in a world, right, in an economy that says, get, collect, and you will have more, right? But God has a different economy, and it's really, really fascinating. Is the more you give away, the more you will receive. And it doesn't make any sense. But I'm going to tell you from my own life, I have found it to be true. And I'm not going to tell you like mathematically, because I don't do math, how that works or how I understand it, other than it is just God at work. Because the more you give away, the more you have this soul-filling experience. And this works not just with your time or your talent or your resource. I mean, it works with everything. And so I think about my resources, right? It doesn't really make any sense for me if I want to like make a lot of money and have a lot of money in retirement and do all these amazing things for me to give money to the church. It doesn't really make any sense to do that. But or to be a part of nonprofits around here in the Bay Area, right? Like Love Never Fails. It doesn't make any sense for me to like throw my financial support behind that because that's less money for me. But when I do give to those things, when I give to Eastown and when I give to Love Never Fails, and when I give to some other organization, it's amazing what happens to me at a soul level. not just do I loosen my grip on my own things and those become less important to me, but I become part of what's going on in the kingdom of God to provide justice and equity for those around me. And something happens to me at a soul level. I feel like a deeper alignment with Jesus than I've ever felt before by giving my stuff away. It's the same thing with my time. My wife and I've talked about this before. I've been fostering for a long time. Fostering is not easy. We're in it even right now with the ups and the downs of things. And we opened up our home to a former foster kid just for the weekend this weekend. And I'll tell you what, it disrupted my schedule. I did not like it because I had all these plans. And we got a call that said, hey, can you just for the weekend hold on to her? And I was like, well, I want to do this, and I kind of want to do that, and I want to do that. And those things changed. It didn't work the way I wanted it to work. But I woke up this morning, and I was spending time with Jesus, and I heard her little, giggle. And I was like, oh, man, what a beautiful thing. And my entire, soul reoriented around how important it was for us to open up our home, to sacrifice our time, to be generous with the things that we have because we care about her, because we see her and her mom the way Jesus sees them. I'm not bragging about this. It has been this with my attitude a lot. But I will tell you that the outcome, when you go like this with it, is amazing. I'm going to give you 3 practical things this morning because I like practicality. I like if someone's like, hey, this is really great, now tell me what to do. So let me give you 3 ideas around this. The first one is you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. If you're going to be hospitable to those around you, if you're going to love people in your life, if you're going to invite them into your home, it doesn't happen accidentally. They're not just going to ring your doorbell and be like, here I am. And you'd be like, okay, sweet. I just made dinner. For a while, Alicia, my wife, and I were sitting down in our calendar and picking out a few days of the month to invite people into our home that we had never met before or didn't know that well, just to make sure that we were being intentional about this. Right. And the Bay Area is a really fascinating place. I learned about this a few years ago. There's a thing called the Bay Area maybe, right? Where you invite somebody to do something or you try to get a commitment from somebody and they're like, maybe, because they're waiting to see if something else better might come along, right? You have got to be intentional. You have got to carve time out of your schedule and be really, really purposeful with inviting people into your home who look differently than you, who think differently than you, who act differently than you, who maybe even other people would go, why are you having them in your home? That's what I love about Jesus so much. He is hanging out with tax collectors, like social outcasts. He's hanging out with prostitutes. He's hanging out with people he should not be hanging out with. Even fishermen were the lowest members of society, and those are the guys that he chose to hang out with the most of the time, his disciples. And so who in this world are you saying, I'm going to cross all of the boundaries and the barriers and love them like Jesus loved them? But you have to be intentional. The Freedom Walk is coming up. And that's Love Never Fails does this every year. And they do this walk around Oakland. And maybe you're like, oh, I've never been to Oakland. Oakland is beautiful, by the way. You need to go. Go to that thing. But you've got to say, okay, I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. I am going to prioritize and be really intentional to be a part of these things. Because you have the opportunity to love people who are from different areas than you, who look different than you, who think differently than you. And that's an opportunity that's already been created for you, but you've got to be intentional. The second part I would say along these lines is you have to be empathetic. There's an old quote that talks about being kind to everyone you meet for they are fighting a harder battle. I was on the internet. Everyone disagrees who originally said it. It doesn't matter. It's really good. You have no idea what people are walking through. You really don't. Clint used to say this all the time and probably still does, but he's been gone for, a couple months, so we don't know. He said, he's like, you can never underestimate the amount of pain in a room. I look around the room here, and I don't know what anybody is walking through, right? I might walk up to somebody, and they're a little cranky with me, and I'm like, that guy's a jerk. But he might have just received some really terrible news, or he might be wrestling with something really difficult in his life. Marriage might be challenging, right? Whatever someone's going through, you just don't know. But when you can find out is when you sit around a table, and you have dinner with somebody, and you spend time with somebody, and you ask questions of someone. This idea of seeking first to understand, I think, is the most important. We have ideas in our heads about why people are in the positions they are in, or why they are the way they are. But they're all assumptions in our minds until we actually sit across from the table, across from a cup of coffee with somebody and start to ask them and say, tell me your story. I want to get to know you. And while you're in there, be empathetic. Make no judgment calls. It's not your job. But two, just seek first to understand and to listen and to hear their experience. And I have found this in my own life. I will often have a greater understanding of them as a human being and why they are in the positions they're in, and a greater amount of love and empathy for them. And that's from Jesus. All right, the last one is to be open. To be open. I mentioned this before, but when I'm open-handed with my stuff, with my time, with my house, all those kind of things, God has this opportunity to bless us, right? He can't give you this kind of like soul gift if you're holding your hands like this. If you've got all of your, oh, this is my stuff, this is my time, this is my calendar, what about all the things that I want to do? But when you are open with those things, God has the opportunity to give you blessings beyond your dreams. That is not me saying that he's going to give you a bunch of money if you open people in your house. I'm not saying that. But I am going to say something very fulfilling will happen to you because I've experienced it myself. And so my encouragement to you out of this, in this Unreasonable Hospitality series, is to pick one time where you invite somebody into your home and you make dinner for them and you eat with them and you ask questions and you are open with your time. You're not like, well, it's 8. I'm bad at this, by the way. It's 8:30. I better start cleaning up because I want to go to bed at a decent time. It's sitting and listening and spending time with them, being open with that. And my encouragement to you is write down what you experienced afterwards. Ask yourself, was that as fulfilling as when I get all of my to-do lists and everything done for the day and all those kind of things? Was that as fulfilling? And my guess is, I would almost bet you, that you will have something beyond that fulfilling experience when you open up your heart, when you open up your home. There's a great quote by a lady named Rosario Butterfield from a book called The Gospel Comes with a House Key. If you've never read that book, it is literally all around this idea of unreasonable hospitality, where a guy, she was what she would call far from Jesus, and a pastor and his wife, like she was really skeptical. She was like, I feel like you're going to try to convert me. And they said, no, we just want to have you over for dinner. And they kept having her over for dinner, and they kept having over for dinner, and never was like, hey, you need to do this and this and this, and then we'll continue to have you over for dinner. They just kept having her over for dinner. And she eventually decided to follow Jesus, not because they put her in some kind of like, hey, you've got to do this to earn this, but they simply just loved her and got to know her and invited her into their homes. And she says this, God promises to put the lonely in families, which is from Psalm 68:6, and he intends to use your house as living proof. Your home, and you might think to yourself, hey, dude, you haven't seen my house. It's small, right? I can't have somebody over. I'm going to push back on that idea a little bit for you. I told you we were in Guatemala last week, and one of the reasons we were there is we've been supporting this nonprofit for a long time. And one of the things that they do is they build homes for people who have no home. A lot of people in these impoverished areas are building homes like out of like tree branches, and then like half sheets of metal, and then like hanging up things on the side, and rain is pouring through the bottom. It's a difficult thing. And so they have a program where you can get a house built for yourself. By the way, the house is one bedroom, like maybe like 8 by 10 feet of cinder blocks. But that's a massive upgrade from what they've experienced. And so we're visiting this, and they're like, hey, we're going to take you to this young girl who's gone through this like education scholarship program that they offer. Her name is Ami. We're going to take you, and we're going to visit her family. And we're like, oh, is that okay? By the way, there's a dozen of us. And we go, and we get there, and I'm feeling like, oh, there's a dozen of us. This is going to be, I feel so bad. And the mom and the dad and this girl, Ami, who's like 15, and her younger brother, who's 9 and has cerebral palsy, are at the door and are so warm and welcoming. And we kind of like sit down on these kind of like old broken plastic chairs that she had borrowed from her neighbor. And with a translator, start hearing their story, hearing their experience. And at one point she goes, stop, I made something for you. And she goes to her little kitchen, which is outside of the home, and brings us all like homemade carrot cake and hot chocolate. And we all sat together right there. And I'm like, man, I think I was supposed to come and like bless you, but you have blessed me beyond anything. So if you're in a place where you're thinking, I don't have the stuff, I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, I can't love people, you can. You can take someone out to dinner, go to a coffee shop, invite them into your home. Love those around you. There's a verse in Romans 12, which I love. Romans 12:13, it goes like this. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. I love that verse. Always be eager to do it. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's easy all the time. There are some times where your schedule will be disrupted. You won't be in the mood to have people into your home. You'll have a bad day at work and you'll be late from the office and it'll be like right from the office into the social time. But I'm not asking you to do this under your own power. When you do this out of the power of Jesus, with the Holy Spirit in you, you will have the ability to do things far beyond your wildest imagination. Maybe that's a foreign idea for you in the room. You're like, oh, what is this whole following Jesus idea? And I would encourage you to this. I'll be here. Clinton Michael will be here. Sam is everywhere. And we would love to talk to you about what it might look like to follow Jesus, about what that process is when you follow Jesus and you have the Holy Spirit in you to give you the power to do things that you are beyond your wildest imagination. When I try to do these things under my own power, when I try to bring people into my home, I end up kind of having a bad attitude about it. But when I say, Jesus, use me in the way you want to use me, make this less about me and more about you, I find a weird strength that I don't know where it's coming from. It's Jesus. And I'm able to do these things. And so my encouragement to you this morning, my challenge to you this morning is to take the opportunity to open up your heart, your doors of your home, and see what happens. Really, really see and know and love someone around you, and then see what happens as your soul flourishes. I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to ask you a question kind of in reflection for you to just sit with before the band comes up. God, thank you for who you are, and I thank you that you love us so much. God, despite our past, despite whatever we think we've done that doesn't earn it, that you love us for who we are. You see us, you know us, and you love us. And God, I pray that out of that, we see and know and love those around us the way that you did. That we love those who are maybe outcast, been left behind. That we go and we pursue, that we are intentional, we practice empathy, and we are open with the things that you've given us so that we can turn on and bless others. Thank you. Amen. As you reflect, I want you to think about this. How might God be calling you outside of your comfort zone to make it less about you and more about others? And then very specifically, who in your life might be on your mind right now? Ask Jesus to give you a name for you to embrace the awkward with and invite them into your home and life despite any challenges that might be perceived. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today, and thanks again for taking the time just to tune in. If you have any questions about Eastown or what it means to put your trust and faith in Jesus, we have many resources available on our website. If you have more questions than what you can find on the website, simply email us at info@eastown.church, and we would love to connect with you. We believe the church should be making a positive difference in your life and in the community in which we exist. And we can only do that through people's generosity. If that is something you would like to do, simply visit eastown.church/give. And again, thanks again for joining us. Tune in next week. Or hey, better yet, visit us in person. Have a great day.